Hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. I'm really excited to welcome you to this webinar this afternoon. And we'll be joined by Garrett Ainsworth. He's the CEO of District Metals, a company we are really excited about for this webinar, actually, or not just for the webinar, but moving forward as well. The company has lots of news in the pipeline. It is very timely that we're hosting this webinar today. Company has drill results pending or coming out very, very shortly as well. And if you're not aware of the project, it's great that you're dialing in because Garrett is going to give you a really good overview of what the company's up to in Sweden. They're working there on the Tomtebo project. So I'm really excited to hear the latest from him there as well. And while I'm moderating here or welcoming you in German, I'll be joined in a few short seconds also by Tarik Dede. He's our director of roadshows here actually out of Frankfurt. I'm in Vancouver, he's in Frankfurt, and he will be moderating the whole webinar. And he will be moderating also in German. He'll be translating your questions as well. So feel free to use the chat function or the Q&A function for your questions. We've already received a couple emails with questions beforehand, which is great as well. That gives us some time to prepare for the answers, and we're going to get to those questions during the end of our webinar when we have a Q&A session with Garrett. Tarik, I kindly ask you now to turn on your camera. I might have to ask you to start video here and to unmute. And then thanks for joining us. Good morning. I was from Vancouver.
Morning. Good morning. Frankfurt is great today. We had some snow in April.
Awful.
So this is this is new for me. Yeah. Okay, good. I think Garrett is already with us. Maybe Kai, you can ask him to come into the webinar.
Yeah, ask to start video. He's here.
Great. So,
there he is.
Then Garrett is with us. Garrett is the CEO and one of the founders of the company. This is great, always to have an entrepreneur and not only a manager. Yeah. So, and as Kai welcomed you in English, I will switch to German. Willkommen hier aus Frankfurt. Kai sitzt in Vancouver. Garrett ist in British Columbia. Garrett ist der CEO und einer der Gründer von District Metals aus 2018. Es geht um Kupfer in Schweden. Und wie Sie vielleicht die letzten Tage gesehen haben, der Kupferpreis hat mächtig angezogen, ist wieder weit über $4 das Pfund. Und die Commerzbank hatte ja vor ein paar Wochen eine ausführliche Studie zum Markt und die haben gesagt, ganz klar, das Allzeithoch aus Februar 2011, das kann dieses Jahr noch fallen. Und da gibt es einige andere Analysten, die sonst eigentlich nicht mit übermäßigem, überschäumendem Optimismus auffallen, die auch jetzt sehr bullisch sind. Und das hat einfach zwei Gründe. Wir haben vor einigen Tagen eine Studie habe ich gelesen von CRU, das ist ein relativ bekanntes Analysehaus, die sagen, uns fehlen 10 Millionen Tonnen Kupfer bis 2030, weil einfach alte Minen auslaufen, ja, und gleichzeitig die Nachfrage steigt. Und um das mal in eine Dimension zu bringen, 10 Millionen Tonnen Kupfer, das sind fast 40% der Weltjahresproduktion und der Investitionsbedarf wird alleine auf 100 Milliarden US-Dollar geschätzt bis 2030. Da tut sich also einiges. Und das hat auch seinen anderen Grund. Auf der anderen Seite ist nämlich Joe Biden dabei, will Amerika nicht zu den erneuerbaren Energien führen, will das Elektroauto durchsetzen und plant auch noch ein Infrastrukturprogramm. Alles, wovon Kupfer profitieren wird. Und wir sehen das ja jetzt schon. Wir sehen es hier in Deutschland, wo Elektroautos jetzt teilweise ja prozentual zweistelligen Bereich verkauft werden im Monat. In China ist man schon weiter, auch in Skandinavien teilweise. Also Kupfer kommt, die Nachfrage ist stark und das wird den Markt unterstützen. Das Tolle ist im Prinzip mit District Metals, der Garrett ist eigentlich zu einer richtigen Zeit in diesen Markt gekommen, denn jetzt gibt es zu wenig Explorationsunternehmen und vor allem mit großen Vorkommen. Wer ein großes Vorkommen hat im Kupferbereich, ist begehrt und wir haben das vor 2 Jahren gesehen bei Kodiak Copper. Da werden vielleicht einige von Ihnen investiert gewesen sein. Die Aktie hat sich vervielfacht, nachdem man eine große Entdeckung im Westen Kanadas gemacht hat. Hat sich natürlich auch wieder alles beruhigt, aber das war nur ein, in Anführungsstrichen, Explorationsplay. Da sehen Sie, was möglich ist bei Exploration. Und wie Kai schon sagte, wir erwarten, das Bohrprogramm in Schweden hat auch begonnen. Und das Gute ist natürlich, wir sind in Schweden und nicht in Afrika. Wir sind also in einer Top-Jurisdiktion. Es gibt in Schweden momentan 16 aktive Minen. Und 2 davon sind auch ganz in der Nähe von dem Tomtebo-Projekt. Also da da kann sich ordentlich was tun. Und now I will switch to Garrett. Garrett, now it's your time. Maybe you start with this quick introduction from yourself, and then we can go straight into the presentation. Just 1 minute. We will have a presentation about 20 minutes, and then you have the chance to ask questions through the chat, and I will translate them into German too. So, because I think 50% of our audience is from Germany. Also Sie haben die Möglichkeit, im Chat Fragen zu stellen, und Garrett wird circa 20 Minuten präsentieren. Übersetzen Sie klar, so easy auf Deutsch schreiben, kein Problem. Okay, Garrett.
Excellent. Good stuff. Thanks, Tarik. My name is Garrett Ainsworth. I'm the CEO, President, Director of District Metals. I'm a geologist by background. I've spent much of my career looking and discovering high-grade uranium deposits in the Athabasca Basin. I was VP Exploration for Alpha Minerals. I took a lead role in the discovery of the Triple R deposit, which is got bought out by Fission Uranium in 2013. Then I went on to NextGen Energy in 2014 through 2018 as VP Exploration and Development. Had a lot of success with the Arrow discovery and also satellite uranium industry awards for my work there. In 2018, I left NextGen and I got a hold of a shell company with very good founding shareholders and went on about a 1.5-year search for a high-grade precious metal or base metal project somewhere around the globe. So we landed on that exciting property in Sweden when we acquired EMX's Tomtebo property. So I'll just bring up the presentation right now. Full screen. There we go. And just a cautionary statement. This is on the website to read if you so choose. So I've talked about myself. I'll just pick off a couple of the team members here that are pretty key. Hein Rat joined us at the beginning of this year. He's got about 15 years experience in the district that our Tomtebo project is in, and he's been just a key geologist in helping us do all the compilation work, and now we're drilling a 5,000 meter drill program. So he was with Boliden, so he's seen a lot of good polymetallic mineralization in Bergslagen. On the board, Joanna Cameron, she's a lawyer. We worked together at NextGen Energy. She's the VP legal. Doug Ramshaw, fairly well known in the industry, is an executive of Minera Alamos, director of Great Bear, has a great depth of capital markets and technical experience as well. Jonathan Chalice, mine engineer, and also again was on the banking side, so his breadth of knowledge on the capital market side is very, very good. So we've got a very strong team, and as we progress, I'm sure we'll be building it going forward. So during my time at Alpha and at NextGen, I really understood how important structure was. It's a really huge component of building a successful company, and that structure has been built into District Metals from the founding shareholders through all the financings. There's a total of 10 major funds that are now within District Metals, and they all understand the story and they see the objective of where we're trying to get to here in building shareholder value. So we've built it up, tried to keep down the warrants. We had to add some in the last financing, but right now we're fully cashed up with just over $5 million in the bank, fully financed for the current drill program that's 5,000 meters. So it'd be pretty easy to do another 5,000 meter program without financing, which is a good position to be in when the markets get choppy. So Sweden is a jurisdiction that really stuck out, and I mean all of Scandinavia as being an excellent place to work. It's highly ranked by the Fraser Institute year in, year out. It's got a history that goes back to 400 BC, which at Garpenberg, that's how that Garpenberg mine traces back to 400 BC. It's now operated by Boliden. You've also got Lundin Mining down at Zinkgruvan. You've got Agnico Eagle and Mandalay Resources up in the north in the gold line. EMX is obviously very, very active. They've an excellent project generator and a great partner on our project with Tomtebo. You know, the landscape for permitting has been amazing. We permitted our drill program in 6 weeks. The tax regime is quite good. And there's a lot of active mines that are going on in Sweden right now. And this whole push to the green energy is really important as part of the story of, you know, discovering a polymetallic deposit, you know, with copper and other green energy metals. In that they're, you know, up by Luleå, they're building a Northvolt battery factory with the whole purpose being that it's going to be metals that are sourced locally. There are 5 smelters in the Nordic region. So the concentrate from these mines does not have to go to Asia. It really reduces your environmental footprint, which is very important. And I mean, they're also talking about building a hydrogen green steel factory up by Luleå as well, which makes a lot of sense considering all the iron mines that they have up there. So zooming in on the Bergslagen district, you fly into Stockholm. It's about a 2-hour drive up to the Red Star. That's our Tomtebo project. It's, you know, right in between the historic Falun mine and Boliden's Garpenberg mine. I mean, during my due diligence, I was just blown away at the size potential and the high grade polymetallic grades that you come across in the Bergslagen. And it's you know, volcanic massive sulfide type deposits, also have a bit of a sedimentary exhalative and carbonate replacement styles of mineralization. Something to note is they're very rich on the precious metal side, which is really what makes them so productive. I mean, they're mining Garpenberg and Zinkgruvan down at about the 1,400 meter level, and they're doing it very, very profitably. So, I mean, also the thing about the Bergslagen is foreign companies weren't allowed in there before the 1990s. So it's got a lot of low hanging fruit that's not being explored. What we've been doing at Tomtebo, and that's what's led us to our priority drill targets that we're drilling right now at Tomtebo. Obviously, infrastructure is quite good. Power costs are low. Rail, roads, you know, ports, they're all there. So it's cost of drilling is actually quite low. So to put some numbers on you know, the size of what we're dealing with in the Bergslagen, and I'll note, you know, when you're dealing with a VMS deposit, if you've got a 5 million ton deposit, you're doing really well. But as you can see, Falun, to the northwest of our Tomtebo project, it produced 28 million tons at really high grades, 3% copper, 3 grams per ton gold, all the other metals. There's still more mineralization there, but they, you know, when they shut it down, they turned it into a mine. So I don't know if there's, you know, any chance of going back in there now. But, and then you look at Garpenberg, that is just a massive deposit or series of deposits. I mean, when you add up all the categories, you get a very big number. It's very silver rich. Currently, it's silver and zinc are like 50-50 for what they bring in revenue from the mine. Zinkgruvan down in the south here. Again, that's a very large series of deposits and very rich with zinc and silver. So I mentioned the precious metal content is significant in the district. In Garpenberg, it's almost 50% when you add up the silver and the gold, and that's from, you know, last year's production at Garpenberg. You know, 3 million tons was mined out, and in some districts that on its own is a when you look at the Falun mine, it's about 41% precious metal content. It shut down in the 1990s, but this is more of a feeder zone type mineralization where it's very copper and gold rich. So that's definitely one aspect or one zonation of mineralization, and Garpenberg's more larger tonnage on the silver, zinc, lead. So there's potential for both on the Tomtebo project. So zooming in to the Tomtebo project in the red outline here, it's about 5,100 hectares. It's a good size. 17-kilometer strike length is covered. We've got the same geology on our project than what you compared to what you see at Falun and Garpenberg. There's numerous mineral occurrences, but very importantly, there's two historical mines, the Lovas and the Tomtebo mine, where past exploration or mining activities only went down to about 200-meter level, and it's wide open at depth at both those mines, and that's very significant given that they're at Garpenberg, they're producing very productively at the 1,400-meter level. And as a little side note, Falun in the first half of the 1900s was being operated by Stora AB. They were also developing the Tomtebo mine to bring that into production when Falun closed. Now, Stora AB was a forestry and mining company, state-owned, and the Swedish government decided during their development of the Tomtebo mine that they were no longer going to be a mining company. They're only going to be a forestry company. So all of their exploration and development projects got shelved. And that's exactly what happened to the Tomtebo project for a number of decades. And so no significant work has been done at the Tomtebo project since the 1970s, 1972 specifically. So here we are with Garpenberg, almost shutting down in the 1990s because they hadn't figured out the mineralizing system at that point, and they brought in some geos. They basically cracked the code on Garpenberg in the 1990s. So that information is helping us to explore our Tomtebo project going forward. You can't get a better analogy and large mine nearby your project in Garpenberg. About 10 years ago, they put a significant amount of capital into upgrading it to be state of the art. All very much automated, whatnot. Boliden's great at putting out information on all their operations. They're mining very low OPEX of $43 a ton. Last year, 3 million tons is a significant amount of rock to be taking out. And then their cutoff is at $32 a ton. That's because they're using long hole stoping, which is a very low cost underground mining method. And they can do that at subvertical mineralization, very competent rocks. So it lends itself to that style of underground mining. Something that's really interesting about Garpenberg is, dating back to 400 BC, it started off as a copper mine. Now it's more significantly a silver, zinc, lead mine. But the historic workings at Garpenberg are very similar. Tomtebo hasn't seen that modern systematic exploration. That's what we're doing right now. So to put some scale and size to everything, this image is very helpful. You can obviously, Garpenberg, it's a series of very large deposits. They're all blind, or most of them are blind to the surface. So there's no way to tell they're there by going around and prospecting at surface. These were discovered, a lot of them in the 1990s, and have really propelled Garpenberg to be a tier 1 asset for Boliden. But when in long section, when you look at the footprint of the Tomtebo mine, all the red blobs, those are where copper mineralization was extracted historically. Stora AB then put this exploration drift down to the 200-meter level, or shaft down to the 200-meter level drift, where they just did drilling mostly horizontal off of that. And we see significant polymetallic, high-grade polymetallic mineralization that's open in all directions. And you can take that footprint and essentially paste it above these 4 blind deposits quite easily. But that's not to say that we're not going to come in and start drilling 500-meter holes at Tomtebo. Actually, some of our targets right now that we're drilling are only about 50 or 60 meters down. So we're starting shallow, and we're going to work our way down because these systems are obviously very, very extensive, and they can be mined productively, which is very important. So conceptually, copying and pasting the footprint of the Garpenberg mine on the Tomtebo property. We have 17-kilometer strike length, so you could copy and you could fit about 3 or 4 Garpenberg mines along our strike length, And you can see the Lovas mine and the Tomtebo mine, they really do look like they're just scratching the surface of hopefully something that's much, much larger on the property. So just a bit of background on the Tomtebo mine area. And this is where we're drilling, again, 5,000 meters. There's limited records, but there has been some copper, some records of copper production, just over 4%. They don't have any other records for gold or other metals, but we know when you've got 4% copper, quite often you see 1 to 5 grams per ton gold. They put together a small resource in the 1960s and 70s that's open in all directions. It shows grades that are, very similar to what you see at Garpenberg, and they're, very shallow from surface to 200 meters depth. Grab samples that were done early on by EMX show really good grades of all the metals of interest as well. So now we're just proving that up with the drill rig. So the styles of mineralization, top left, that's your copper, gold type mineralization, chalcopyrite. Bottom left is more your silver, zinc, lead, carbonate replacement and whatnot. And then to your right, there's a transitional mineralization that's where you get everything. So this is a plan view looking down at the 3D model that we put together from historical drilling at the Tomtebo mine. It's about a kilometer strike length of mineralization, which is this thick blue line is an exploration drift at the 200 meter level, and it's following the trend of mineralization. Down in the south, that's where you find your copper gold that they mined out down to the 90 meter level, but mineralization remains open at depth and along strike. But as you go to the northeast, it transitions more into the silver, zinc, lead mineralization. And then it folds around to the east, and again, it's more silver, zinc, lead. So we're drilling right now in the north end at Oscarsgruvan, and over here is Steffenburg. And the next slide, I'll just show you, one of the reasons when we did our due diligence why we got so excited about this project is we're at the north end of the mine looking south is a long section. And there's a number of drill holes here that you can connect together that show really good continuity over a significant panel of mineralization or horizon of mineralization. So it shows a strike length of about 170 meters and then a dip extent of about 200 meters, and it's open in all directions. So this is definitely one of our key areas that we're focusing in on. You've got historical hole 65001 into a silver equivalent. It's over 1,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. So these are very, very high grade polymetallic intercepts. Then looking at the northwest part, looking down, bird's eye view, the thick blue line that's the exploration drift. As I said, much of the drilling was done horizontally off of the exploration drift. We're very excited about to follow up on historical holes 7003 and 7004. Drilling underneath this is going to be really great because when you combine those two intercepts, it's about a 30 meter width of about 500 grams per ton silver equivalent. So it's wide open at depth, never been drilled. Going to the south end of the historic Tomtebo mine, where I mentioned there's more copper gold mineralization. You can see the open pits, underground workings to the 90 meter level. There's some very significant copper intercepts. And again, they didn't assay for gold. So, this one hole here had numerous copper intercepts, even up to 4 meters of 12% copper. We would expect quite good gold numbers, gold values associated with that kind of an intercept. And that's what we'll be doing with some of our follow-up holes is, obtaining the precious metal assays that were never done previously. But a key thing about having this copper zone here is it's very large, very altered, and it's showing us there's a very robust and strong feeder system that is going into the silver, zinc, lead zones. And that's what you see at Garpenberg. And that's why it's a really good shot at making significant resource expansion here. So when we obtained the project in June of last year from EMX, we hit the ground very quickly in July, and we flew an airborne electromagnetic survey, and essentially it picked up what we're what we've determined to be the Tomtebo mine trend. It's about 4.6 kilometers long, about 1.5 kilometers wide. There's a number of these magnetic high anomalies that are very isolated, ones with the Tomtebo mine, and they extend in a nice linear fashion. And, those shouldn't be there unless they're being caused by polymetallic mineralization or some sort of iron sulfide mineralization. And it's exactly what you see at Garpenberg, all these isolated magnetic high anomalies, and it's what you see with Falun. So it's a really good signature for us to have, and it really expanded our scope outside of the historic Tomtebo mine. And last week, we put out some very exciting news regarding a ground gravity survey that we conducted in December of last year. And I mean, first off, we wanted to get proof of concept. Does the ground gravity survey pick up high density material that could be associated with polymetallic mineralization at the Tomtebo mine? And we get a big check mark because it worked. And we're able to actually model out these plates, and they're dipping to the west, to the northwest, and they total a tonnage, like an exploration target with a tonnage of 72 million tons, with very dense material that is hopefully related to polymetallic sulfides. But after getting proof of concept, was that this northeast gravity target was discovered, and it's completely blind, never been drilled. It's got coincident magnetic anomalies, conductive anomalies, and this amounts to an exploration target of 34 million tons, and with high density material in it that could be polymetallic sulfides, iron sulfides, or mafic unit. But it's a blind target, so we're really looking forward to drill test this in the future, probably October actually. And then we've also got this southwest gravity target, which is about 29 million ton exploration target with very dense material, which is, again, these are how these type of deposits at Garpenberg are strung along a long trend. So it's very positive that we're seeing good exploration indications to drill these. Now I've had the timeline in here since about a year ago, and we've gone through all of this, and now we're finally at the 5,000 meter drill program. It started in March 15th of this year, and we'll probably continue drilling until end of May, perhaps early June. Drilling's going really well. We're looking to probably put the first drill assay results out in the month of May, probably mid to late May. But yeah, it's a really exciting time, and the information that we get from this 5,000 meter drill program will help us to dictate, what we do with the next drill program, whether it's 5,000 or 10,000 meters. That's pretty much it for the presentation. So happy to take any questions that there may be.
That's great, Garrett. Thanks so much for running us through the story. I also shared the link of the presentation here in the chat. So if you want to have another look at the document itself, it's mentioned in the chat here. We'd like to ask everybody to use the chat function or Q&A function for your questions. As I mentioned, we already had a couple questions that came in, and we had one question here in the Q&A function that came from Germany, actually. And Tarik, why don't you go ask that one? You're muted, good sir. I'll ask it then, because Tarik is still muted.
Oh,
and,
sorry. Kai, sorry. Garrett, there's a question about the EMX royalty. So please give us a little bit more information about that. How does the details look?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so EMX royalty has been operating in Scandinavia since 2012. They've built up a huge network of very smart geologists, done very well getting to know the major mining companies and also the government regulatory bodies as well. So the but the details on the transaction that we did on the Tomtebo project. So essentially, we got 100% of the Tomtebo project for 9.9% share ownership in District Metals. There was a cash payment of $35,000 Canadian and a 2.5% NSR that we can buy down to 2% for about 2 million Canadian. So it was a fairly clean deal. And EMX is great to work with. Their whole idea is they want this to be a mine. So the deals are pretty straightforward in that sense, and they're good partners to have on exploring.
Great. I'm going to ask a question that came in via email before. And is DMX being approached yet by major intermediate precious metals base metal mining companies for joint venture proposals and or direct investments?
That sounds like a very strategic question. I mean, I definitely have had meetings with other mining companies that are active in the region to tell them about District Metals, because we're a fairly new player in the region. So I definitely, it's part of my job, and everything is getting the word out to all of our peer companies. And yeah, so we've been very active on that front.
Okay. We got one more question here in the chat, also from a German viewer. So hi, Paul. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. And who are some of the main investors? Like you have about 33% SC institutional investors. Can you tell us a bit more who's behind that number?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really good question. So, I mean, the founding shareholders, Warren Irwin, Russo Asset Management has a big stake. Ivan Bebic is actually a very, very supportive founding shareholder. In the June 2020 financing we did, Sprott US came in, and they hold almost just under 10% of the company as well. Bridgeport Capital is a fund out of Kelowna. Commodity Capital, I think, is probably well known in Europe with Tobias Treader. And then in this last financing that we did that closed December 30th, we had Cambrian Capital from San Francisco come in, Extract Capital from New York, and KJ Harrison from Toronto. So it's a very strong, registry of shareholders.
Sounds like it. Yeah, that's a lot of good names you mentioned there. So that's fantastic. I have a follow-up to that, which actually came in by email. It fits perfectly now asking that. And the question is Garrett comfortable with the current composition of DMX shareholder registry?
I'm thrilled with the current composition of like this early stage. We have 10 like big funds in the company, which is not often the case with exploration companies at this stage with a 35-40 million market cap. So in order for us to launch company early on is very positive for the company and all other shareholders.
Tarik?
Yeah, just give me a second.
In that regard, like, do you have any research coverage yet, or are you on any institutional watch lists yet?
We had a note put out by Haywood. I mean, I should mention they basically led the last financing that we did, of 4.75 million. So yeah, so I mean, we've got a following there. I think we're going to need to put out our own assays, and then the news flow and the coverage will start.
Okay, I have one question. Can you tell us something about the costs of drilling in Sweden for Central Europeans like me? Sweden is a very expensive country. And second one is regarding the budget. How much will you invest in the recent drilling program? And yeah, as you mentioned, you will do another one in fall maybe. Do you have enough budget for all of that?
Yep. No, definitely. We definitely, we've got over 5 million in the treasury right now. The current drill program is going to be 1.7 million. I mean, that's for 5,000 meters of drilling. We can definitely add another 5,000 without having to go back and finance. In terms of drilling costs in Sweden, labor costs are higher, but because the infrastructure is so good, you save so much money. You don't have to build a camp. You don't have to have these huge mob, demob. You've got roads all over the place, rail all over the place. It's fantastic. So, and to put it, so our drilling costs are $300 Canadian per meter for everything. And to put that into perspective, you know, when I focused all of my drilling in northern Saskatchewan, drilling costs are about $450 a meter. And that's because it's way out in the middle of nowhere. But then if you go to Red Lake, you can do $150 a meter Canadian all in. So, you know, in Sweden, I'd say it's right in the middle.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Garrett, I have one more question that came in via email for you. And I just double checked your timeline and next steps for Tomtebo and pretty much Q1 2021. So more of a hindsight timeline than a forward-looking timeline. And the question is quite forward-looking, actually. And it says, assuming favorable drill results, what is the earliest time frame that DMX can see for making a positive decision to move forward project development? So I think it's more of a question of timelines, like when do you expect to have certain studies done? I don't think they want an exact production date, obviously, but they want to see where things are headed, right?
Yeah. So this first drill program is really this first drill program is focused on following up on holes, the historical holes that is missing precious metal data. It's also going to be doing some infill to help us understand the continuity in certain zones where there's a lot of high grade, and then stepping out down dip beneath the 200-meter exploration drift. And we'll be completing all those holes with downhole EM surveys, which has never been done on the project. And that was one of the key surveys that made Garpenberg go from near closure to now being a tier 1 asset. So the information that we get from this drill program will really help to inform us as to what we're going to do next. And then we can be much more aggressive with larger step outs, down dip, and along strike. And now we've got these exploration targets along trend to the northeast and southwest, which will be focused on, starting in October. So, I mean, we'll always start internalizing a mineral resource estimate. When we would, release that, it's really hard to give a timeline because we don't have the results yet to do that.
Okay. Maybe as a follow-up to not having the results yet, what do you expect in terms of turnaround? So what's the lab situation in Sweden like these days?
It sounds like it's not as bad as North America. It's
fingers crossed.
Yeah. I've been told 4 to 6 weeks. The timeline that we'll be sticking to.
That's fast. And maybe you have all the historical data. I know that you can't use it for resource estimate, regarding NI 43-101, but it helps you to build up your geological model. Yeah, is it a lot of data, or how can we compare that to old Canadian mines where we have a lot of data you can use for modeling?
Yeah, so that was the basis for the 3D model, was all the historical drilling, the mine maps. But you're right, Tarik, we cannot use that as part of like a 43-101 mineral resource estimate. I mean, quite often there's barely any of the drill colors are visible in the field. We don't know what kind of QA/QC they did back then. The analytical methods they used are totally different. They didn't, it's good kind of indications as to where we should be looking, but we can't rely on those. That's why, in some cases we're re-drilling or twinning some of these historical holes.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have any further questions for Garrett, just leave them in the chat or put them in the Q&A function. I know this has been like DMX is still a very, let's say, small cap exploration company that is about to re-drill and come up with some drill results soon. So it's still earlier stage. So I'm quite excited by the feedback we've been getting here in the webinar itself and on the roadshow. I know you've had some fantastic meetings the last couple of days as well. So what else did we forget to talk about, Garrett? What else is what is keeping you up at night? Like, what is something that you're being let's say in Vancouver, in British Columbia, on the other side of the planet, what is keeping you awake? And let's besides COVID, obviously. So
yeah, well, I mean, I did touch on it, the ground gravity survey, but I mean, the game plan for district all along has been to get a project that's got some advanced stage exploration prospects on it or historical mines, and try to work off of that. So we're not like super high risk, only grassroots. So we know what we're dealing with, the Tomtebo mine, the Lovas mine, and now we're just going to systematically follow mineralization at depth and along strike. But I've always had the view that I really love grassroots discoveries. And so concurrently, we've been working really hard to develop targets that could, turn into a grassroots discovery. And what we have, especially with this gravity anomaly that's a kilometer to the northeast of the Tomtebo mine, is an amazing opportunity to potentially make a bona fide grassroots discovery. And I'm excited about that. Like, it's totally blind, never been drilled. There's overburden. So, past people looking for mineralization could never see it, but it's not deep. It's only 40 meters down. It extends down to 320 meters. It could be modeled deeper, but we decided to cut it off there for drill targeting purposes. So when we get drilling on that, I'm going to be there for it first off. So I'm so excited for that. But it's that keeps me up at night, because I live for those grassroots discoveries.
Okay, maybe one last question that just came to mind is like, how many holes are done, how many meters are done, and then we can sort of wrap this up here, I think. Yeah,
we'll be putting an update out in the next couple of weeks regarding how the drilling is going. We're not going to be reporting on visuals. We've decided to, we've decided to not go down that track. But like I said, we're aiming to hopefully have some drill assay results out, mid-May, maybe like late May.
Great, Garrett. I think this was short and sweet. Like, this was perfect. Great overview. Terms of the agreement. Drilling incoming, like results pending are coming out May, as you said, early mid-May. So 3-4 weeks. That's fantastic. I think that's it. Thanks so much, Garrett. Thanks for joining us. Everybody else, thanks for dialing in. Thanks for your questions. I hope this was informative. If you have any follow-up questions, of course, either email wilson@soarfinancial.com. That's the email that's mentioned in our newsletter. Thanks for joining us. And we'll make this recording, of course, available on YouTube afterwards as well. So, schönen Nachmittag noch. Alles Gute nach Deutschland und bis die Tage mal wieder.
Ja, vielen Dank nochmal für Ihre Teilnahme, und wenn Sie Fragen haben, schreiben Sie uns. Kein Problem. In der E-Mail steht die Adresse wilson@soarfinancial.com, und das Video gibt es auch auf YouTube. Dann können Sie sich nochmal in Ruhe anschauen, und dann tauchen vielleicht nochmal Fragen auf. Jetzt erwarten wir erstmal 4 bis 6 Wochen die Bohrergebnisse, wahrscheinlich ein bisschen schneller. In Schweden läuft es ganz gut mit den Laboren, und dann bleibt mir nur noch Ihnen eine angenehme Woche zu wünschen. Vielen Dank. Thank you very much, Garrett. Thank you, Kai. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.